Hey everybody, how we doing today? So today's video is a sight fishing strategy for rising tides. Alright, I see two snook right there. They're facing that way because the current's running this way. I'm gonna kind of go. Ooh, shoot. Oh, I'm going right over them. That's not good. Oh, there he goes. Oh, spit it. Dang it, they're right there. That one saw me. Now, as you see in my videos, a lot of times you'll see me working those edges of the mangroves, and I'm always emphasizing, look at how the water is low compared to the branches and the leaves of the mangroves, as well as you can kind of see the actual island itself sticking up. And because of that, I know that those fish are forced out of those islands when they're submerged, and now they're pushed out onto those edges where I could visibly see them and catch them. Well, today's video is going to be what happens when you miss that low tide, okay? Because you can only go fishing when you can go fishing. But so if you head out there and you've missed that low tide, and the tide now is on the rising and it's coming up, and it's even got to the point where those fish are able to swim back underneath those mangroves, get way deep in there where you're not able to get at them. However, with this strategy, this will allow you to still fish those edges and be successful. Look at all the tarpon. Sight fishing 101 working. Wish I would have seen them a lot earlier. Look at all these guys. There they are, hanging out here. Okay, the scenario we're looking at is I'm going to be targeting the same vicinity as those pocket areas where those fish are holding at the lowest tide after they're forced off the flats, they're forced off of the mangrove islands, and they're just hanging out waiting for that water to come up. Okay, so same basic area there, but I'm pushing off 10 yards, 20 yards, 30 yards from those holes. Okay, now remember, we're on the rising tide. Some of those fish have moved back into the island, so they're not approachable. I'm not going to see those. However, some of the fish are hungry and they're looking to feed at this low tide and rising, so they're going to move out onto almost the flats, okay, and they're looking for these little pocket areas, and that's what I'm looking to, is these little pockets, these little depressions, these little drop-offs where it may be the grass flats and then it goes to a sandy area, so it's got a little bit of a drop-off there, okay. And those fish are basically going to just lay up there. That heavy current is pushing there over them. Also, what happens in regards to the bait is at that low tide, a lot of times is that the flats are actually exposed. Okay, the land actually comes above the water and the water is pushed off there. So all these little bait fish, crustaceans, a lot of times they get pushed out of their holes. They get stuck in these little pockets where they can't go anywhere. Then all of a sudden the tide starts rising and that current really starts pushing them off, and now they're just kind of stuck in the current trying to get somewhere. And then you have these fish that are sitting in these little pockets, and all they're just doing is just looking up, waiting for some food to come over, and they're just grabbing it. All right. Now this is a short window here. Remember, some of the fish just got high enough where they're going off into the islands. Once it gets high enough on the flats, those fish are going to take off and they're going to go forage on the flats, and they can go anywhere. So at that point, once it hits that mid-tide to high tide, I don't even target zones like that because it's a waste of time. Nothing's going to be there. They're going to be so far into the mangroves, I couldn't even cast that far to get at them. And the fish on the flats are just roaming around randomly, and then there's just no way for me to just go, oh, they're going to be in this one certain spot. I just have to kind of go and look and hopefully run into them. So it's just that short window. My strategy then is, fishing wise, is that I always want to pull from behind. So I want to go against the current. So those fish are always going to be nose into the current because that's where the food is going to be coming from. It makes it easier for me because I could sneak up on them. They're not paying attention what's behind them. Plus, when I do spot them, I can also cast past them and bring that bait with the current, okay? Going the opposite direction, if I'm going with the current, I'm going right into their face and they're going to see me before I see them and they're going to skedaddle. Also, my bait presentation is going to end up being cast past them or right on top of them and then trying to swim against the current, and that's just not natural, and they're just going to say this isn't right, and then either not going to bite or they're going to take off. So that's my kind of gist of what I'm looking at. So let me take you on the computer. I'll go on Google Maps, show you kind of the texture of what I'm looking at, the zones that I'm kind of looking at, and then I'll show you some fishing examples where I actually just did this and caught something and almost caught something and stuff. So check it out here. All right, so here's an overview of what I'm talking about. So we've got basically the mangrove island here. You've got this kind of an undercut, deeper water here that runs right along that edge of the mangroves. You've got the flats heading out in this direction. Now at high tide, these islands are submerged. They're in a foot, 2 feet of water, okay? And those fish can basically swim across these islands through the roots. Now, as that water level drops, then the island becomes exposed. Those fish are forced out into these cuts here along these edges, and a lot of them will just hang out there and just wait for that tide to get high enough where they can go back in. So a lot of times that's where you'll see me targeting these edges, sight fishing for all the reds, the snook, the tarpon, and so forth. Now, as that water starts rising, some will go inside, but some of them that are hungry will want to go forage out onto the flats out here. But in that short window, they'll come up into these little pockets here, these little potholes, the little depressions. And what happens is that the food up in these flats, as that water starts pushing, you start getting that really heavy current this direction. They start flooding over these potholes. The fish are laid up, they just look up. As soon as that bait comes over, boom, they just grab it and they sit back down and wait for another meal to come across. However, once that water gets high enough on the flats over here, then they're gone. They take off and then they're roaming around scavenging for food. So I'm looking for that window where some of the fish have left, but some have moved out. They're just waiting for it to get a little bit higher before they take off. They're facing into the current, the current is going down, and they're facing up, waiting for that food. I will bring up my kayak from below them up into the current, okay, facing the current as well, facing the same way as the fish, so I'm coming up behind them. They can't see me. That'll allow me to kind of sight fish, see them, drop anchor there, and then plan my cast so I'm to one side of them. I don't want to go cast right over them, and then just work that bait just slowly across them, waiting for them to come up and grab it. So that is my strategy for that little small window there. Yeah, let's check out a good example here.
Oh, there's my snook. Oh, my drag's loose. That's my snook. Snooky, snooky. Not getting in the mangroves. You're not getting in the mangroves. Snooky, snooky. I knew you'd be in those holes. I knew you'd be in the holes. Snook, snook, baby. See, everything's freaking out over here. Yeah, buddy. You done? Snook, snook, snooky. let you go here. Danger trebles. Stop, stop. Bam! Not a barracuda. Not a cuda tube. Yabba dabba doos. Nice. Knew you'd be sitting out there in those little potholes. I couldn't see ya. Alright, make sure no sharks are around. You're free to go whenever. That's a nice one. Nice. Shuck them thumbs. There, you're free. Thanks for playing. Basically, I don't know if you can see, but it's this sandy, murky, sandy bottom, but right over there is that dark green patch, and that's some deeper water there. So I figured something would be sitting in that hole there. I tried here, there was nothing, but definitely was going to be something there.
Alright, so hopefully you enjoyed the video, found it a bit helpful. I'm going to be adding this to my sight fishing playlist, since it is one of my sight fishing strategies. You can also do the same thing blind casting, but unless you're sight fishing, you're not going to really know where those zones are, so you're still just looking at miles and miles and miles of same looking shoreline, and you would basically have to cast 1,000 times to try to find a pocket that might be holding a fish. So more of a sight fishing thing. But anyways, thanks for watching, and I will see you next video. Bye.